Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Chambers. I hope everyone is healthy and well, no matter where you are in the world. But it's that time to grab your favorite drink, that blanket, or that furry friend and curl up to talk some travel. That's right. So today we're going to be going through things you need to be aware about when renting a car. I'm going to give you recommended car companies to rent from, as well as a recommendation of car rental booking sites. And stick around to the end of the show. I'm going to give you 10 places to travel for Labor Day this year. So let's dive right in. Well, this year seems to be the year of road trips. And with COVID going on and being cooped up around, everyone seems to be wanting to get out. Of course, I can't blame anyone. We all want to get back to traveling, but road trips seem to be the ideal way to do it. It's just too much hassle to travel on planes and going through all the extra security and extra checkpoints that you have to go, and possibly having to be quarantined within another location before you're allowed to be there. There's just a lot of things. So I understand. I really understand. Even though there's been new guidelines of how airlines have prepared cabins, and the cleanliness and their protocols have all changed and upgraded and things like that, which is great. But it just seems a lot easier to take that road trip. Just a little less hassle. You can have a little more peace of mind knowing that you can control your environment, or that you're not around a lot of other people. So I understand that. I'm one of those. I'm not one that wants to jump on a plane right now with everything going on, but I am itching to get back out in the world and traveling. So if you are one of those that is looking or interested in going on a trip and you want to go the route of renting a car, you should already know a couple things, but I'm going to talk to you today about a couple things you ought to be aware about, or just put back in the front of your mind when you're getting ready to get your trip going. And some of these things we know, it's kind of like that common sense, but we just sometimes don't think about it. And the first thing is that it's always better to book a rental car earlier than later. That's just kind of rule of thumb for most things. If you know you want to go somewhere and you want to book, it's better to book it early. I know we're always looking for that best deal, and we're trying to get those the best price and things that we want. And last minute deals sometimes can be very appealing and kind of exciting. But when it comes to those travel needs and you know your timeline, it's really just better to get it ahead. And most rental car companies prefer you to book 3 to 6 months. That's what they consider the optimal time period. Now, sometimes I have no idea that I'm going to be going on a trip in 3 months and I have to find something. So it's not going to be detrimental if you're not in that 3 to 6 month window. But if you know 3 to 6 months out that you're going to be needing a rental car on your trip, or you know your trip when you're leaving that you're going to be needing that, it's probably better to go ahead and book it. So people that knew this summer that they were going to be going somewhere for Labor Day, or if you knew in May that, August you were going to be taking a trip, you'd really want to be booking that rental car and locking those in now, because you want to make sure that there is inventory. Now, there was a lot of lockdown with things, and not many people were driving and renting cars and things like that, but now that people are out and starting to get back and wanting to get away a little bit, the demand is going to be much higher. So you're going to want to get on that as early as you can. If it's not a month to 3 months, you're going to want to get there, a couple weeks, or if you can, to book those. And a lot of these things that you should be asking. A lot of people also asked, and I checked into this, people think that there's certain times that that they have to pick up their car to get a better rate. And people always think that the weekends are more expensive. Well, it actually turns out the weekend pickups tend to be slightly cheaper, with typically Monday and Tuesday pickups being more expensive. And I found that out only because people are wanting to be traveling on the weekends, not picking up their car. So typically wanting to get it early in the week tends to give them the rest of the full week and the weekend so they can return it by that Sunday or even that Monday. So those are just reasons that tended to work out. So if you are thinking about or wanting to find a lower price on the pickup time, you're going to have a higher chance of finding a lower price for that pickup on a weekend and then traveling during the week. But if you want to be traveling during the week or on the weekends, you're going to have to pick it up sooner than that. Typically, Monday and Tuesdays are slightly more expensive. So just keep that in mind. Now, a lot of people also ask about the insurance. Is it a scam? And we see all the time that people say, oh, that's how they make their money and things like that. Well, it really just depends on the driver. And I know that's not what anyone wants to hear. We always want to hear a yes or no, but it really depends on the driver, because the insurance is typically something I usually get a full coverage or some kind of insurance policy with my rental whenever I rent a car, just because you never know. And I typically do it more when I'm in other countries. Like when we were in Mexico and we rented a car, we definitely got it, but the policies were very, very different. I tend to not rent a car whenever I don't have to, but when we went to California, we needed to rent a car, and I think we got like the lowest level. It's like anywhere between $1 to $7 a day or something like that we added on. And it does give you that peace of mind. It really does. I know some people say, well, I'm just throwing money away. If that's how you feel, you do you, man. That's okay. But just think about anything can happen. And you want to also keep in mind where you're going. Are you going to be with your car most of the time? Is it really going to be sitting around? What are you going to be doing, using the car for? So, all these things you think about with your trip, and that'll help you decide if you really need that insurance. If you're a crazy driver, and some of you out there know you're crazy drivers, then that's going to be something you might want to consider investing a little bit of extra into, is with the insurance. But I don't think it's a scam. Now, not everyone, I don't think you need to get the highest level of insurance. I think you need to find what fits you to make it fit. So you don't have to jump right to the most expensive insurance unless you're just paranoid. So I don't believe it's a scam, and so it's always good to be insured. But the one thing you also want to check is check with your own insurance company, because sometimes your own company actually provides coverage which extends to a rental car. So you check with your insurance company first before going through that, because if that's the case, then you are saving yourself money right there anyway, and you don't have to get the insurance with them. So that's just another thing. Another thing when getting a car is look into the loyalty programs. The majority of the loyalty programs with cars, rental companies, are free to join. They want you to come back. I mean, if they make a fee for you to pay, then it's harder for them to get people to join their loyalty programs, and then it becomes maybe a one customer type of thing. So I found out that the majority of companies offer a free loyalty program. And again, if it is free, it never hurts. I mean, some of them you start getting benefits right away. I know with National, you tend to get benefits right away. I wasn't a National rental car loyalty program. I wasn't in their loyalty program, but my father was. That is the company, especially when he was doing business. He was very big with National and used to use them all the time. And every time we would go on a trip somewhere and he would zip through the line, he'd get upgraded instantly. I mean, he had benefits coming out the wazoo, and he was paying for the same thing, like same thing as me, but because of that loyalty program, he was given so many more benefits. So I recommend looking into whatever company you're going with. If they offer a free program, it never hurts to join. I highly recommend that because you could receive benefits instantly, and it could even bump you up from that rental when you sign up. So make sure that you check those out. There's not really a downside to something that's free, right? You can always opt out to, block those emails or unsubscribe or even cancel the membership, the loyalty program if you want. Another thing that you need to be aware about is if you even qualify to rent a car. That's something that we don't tend to think about. I know it's a big deal sometimes when you hit 25 because, 18 is like a big milestone, or 16 you get your driver's license, 18 then you can you're 18, you're considered an adult at that point. Then 21, you can go out anywhere as a big age. And then 25, you're like, well, what do I have 25? Oh, my insurance goes down, or I can rent a car. Yay. Because a lot of places you have to be at least 25 years old to be able to rent a car. And before you can even go rent a car, you need to make sure that you do still qualify. Just because you're 25 doesn't automatically mean that you can rent a car. So you need to make sure if your driving record's clean, or if you have violations that include reckless driving or a DWI or a DUI or a suspended license or even a revoked license, any of those type of things, this will not be in your favor, or you will be disqualified of getting a car or renting a car from one of these companies. So you need to make sure that you don't fall into any of those categories. The other thing is that people also need to keep in the back of their mind, does it help build your credit? It doesn't help build your credit, but it could affect your credit score, because some car rental companies, they may review your credit report if you want to rent a car. So, and this could negatively impact your scores. So just keep that in mind. Again, we'll go through some different companies, but anytime you are looking at something like any trip, you want to do your research. You want to just look and be aware of what you're getting into. So make sure you qualify. Make sure you have, everything is in line that you can just show up or you can go online and you can rent right then and there. And then also, if you are worried about your credit score, double check whatever company you're going with to see if it's going to affect your score by renting your car with them. Okay, so now that we've gone through a lot of that, let's talk about some things that are let's just say like a checklist before renting a car. Because now we've talked about the more or less pros and cons and things that we need to look for when we're getting ready to buy a car or rent a car, I'm sorry. But now that you're there's things that you need to keep in mind on that checklist. You need to make sure that you have everything with you that's required. So you need to make sure that you have a credit card. Most companies require a major credit card to hold on file. I always recommend having cash too, because some credit card or some rental car companies will allow you to pay the deposit in cash, even if they keep your card on file. So if you don't want it on your card, it's always good to have cash with you on top of that. But carry a major credit card with you when going to rent a car. And also, make sure you have your driver's license or passport. And one thing that I have to make sure, if you're traveling internationally, carry a copy of your passport. Do not give your actual passport to a rental car company or somewhere. There was a side story. I was actually in Cabo, and when we landed, we actually rented a car. It was just easier because we knew we were going to be driving around a little bit. And so we thought it'd be easier to have a car because we weren't staying in the city. We were kind of on one of the resorts along the coastline between the two cities. And we rented a car, and they were asking for our passport. And the guy at the counter was wanting to take our actual passports, and we did not do that. So we made sure that we gave them copies of our driver's license and photocopies of our passports. That we had no problem giving up, but do not give them your passport or driver's license If you do, you make sure you get that back. When you're in another country, I highly recommend carrying copies of those anyway, just in general. So just be aware of that. So you have your paperwork, you have all the things that you need, right? Now it's time to pick up your car. Make sure that you check the exterior of the car. It's really important that you do. You don't want to be getting in the car, just jump in, being in a rush, or just getting too excited and taking off. And then all of a sudden when you get to a destination or you get out, you see that there's a big old scratch on the side of the car. And you're going to get charged for it because you didn't do a walkthrough. Most of the companies will do a walkthrough with you just to double check any dings and dents and marks and things on the car. And they'll mark things that were already there, cracks in the windshield, things like that. But if there's anything glaring before you drive that off the lot or leave the parking garage, you need to make sure that you have somebody inspect it. Because now most of the time with companies, that when you're in the airport, you don't even have to go through a check with somebody. You really just go and you find a car, you get in, you choose one in a certain row, and then you take off, which is very convenient because you're not having to wait for them to come and pull the car up. You're just getting to go. You get to choose whatever level you're renting, whether it's a compact, sport, SUV, whatever you're getting, and then you just get to choose and get in and pack and go. So, and that's the great thing about that, and it's really convenient, but you need to make sure that there's not something damaged on the car before you leave that they have not marked. So always check the exterior of the car. You also have to familiarize yourself with the rental vehicle, because I've gotten in a car before, and we all think it's kind of neat to drive different cars sometimes. If I'm getting a different car, I like to get something that might be interesting to me, or something that might not have a chance to drive. My wife is more about the convenience, I feel, when we get it. Is it functional enough? And yes, you want it to be functional enough, but I like more of style and things like that, because I'm the one that tends to have to drive the car on our trips when we rent a car. So I want to make sure that it is convenient for me, or it feels good. And I really like that. But just make sure that you're familiar with everything. Or when you get in, spend a few minutes going through and checking things out and making sure, don't just drive off and then try to figure it out. Because I remember we were driving in San Francisco, and I was needing to I kept using the windshield wipers for my signal because they were switched or something along those lines. I wasn't familiar, or my lights weren't automatic. And so I was driving and I couldn't figure out how to get the lights on. And my car that I drive at home is automatic lights, and the switch is in a different spot. So all those type of things come into play. You're with a new vehicle, you're driving in a new place. You just have to make sure that you're comfortable. So check those things out. The last two things are pretty easy. Make sure that you return it with the fuel unless you prepaid that, so that they fill it up. That's super important, because you can get charged a lot of money. You got to make sure you fill it up or pay that charge prior to. And you need to make sure that you return it on time. A lot of these companies are very big about getting the cars returned on time, and you can get charged a fee. So there you go. That's just that checklist that you need to keep in mind. So when you're renting a car, go through those mental notes and just double check everything. Coming up after the break, I'm going to be talking about different companies that you might want to look at renting a car from.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. We just finished talking about things that you might need to go through when renting a car, just a little mental checklist for you before that next big trip. Make sure you stay with us till the end, because I'm going to give you some of my recommendations for a good Labor Day weekend getaway. Well, now that we've talked about the mental checklist, I want to get into certain rental companies that you should be looking at. That's right, because there are so many out there, and you want to make sure that you are getting the best one and the best deal and the best price. Now, with so many companies out there, these are just some that I feel and I would recommend going with, and these are in no particular order. My personal recommendation that I have always loved is National. National Car Rental they're very good about loyalty programs, especially for business travelers. Typically, when we are traveling and we are there for some kind of business or some reason, it tends to work out better for us. We are part of their loyalty program, so we get a lot of perks, and we're usually upgraded every time that we rent through them. So our business trips tend to bleed into a lot of leisure trips that we take. So for us, National is one that I recommend. So if you're a business traveler specifically, or you like to blend your business and pleasure travel trips, then I would recommend National to you as well. Their website is very good. It's highly regarded. They, according to the J.D. Power survey of travel industry, they were in some of the top and first and second place, respectively, in the categories in regards to their website and their apps and their online, all their online portals. So they're very highly recommended. They've always been clean. And National, to me, now I have worked with I have rented through other companies, but National to me was always the easiest to get in and out of airports. They're one of the larger rental car companies that you can get when you're flying into major airports and most of the cities, and it tends to allow that to have a bigger spot, or with the more cars that they have, their company tends to be closer to the terminal than some of the other companies. Because I've been to, I remember I was in Cleveland one time, and no matter what company you go with, it's not connected to the airport. You have to take this bus all the way over there. But certain companies had larger lots, or it was just easier getting in and out. So for me, I've always noticed that National tends to have a bigger hub, and it becomes easier to get in and out for that. One thing, like when I was looking at quotes, a typical 1 week rental quote for National comes in about $693. That's including taxes and fees. So that is, if you're looking for more of a budget-friendly, National might not be the route to go, but you're going to have quality. They have quality cars. Their customer service is very good. I have found that I've never had a problem whenever I've rented a National car. So that is one thing to keep in mind. Now, because we live in a day in 2020 where COVID-19 rules all, right? They do have a new COVID-19 cleaning policy. And I'm going to read this because National shares with its sister company Enterprise's Complete Clean Pledge is what it says. This is from BusinessInsider.com. So the Clean Pledge, which includes washing, vacuuming, general wipe down, and sanitizing with a disinfectant that meets leading health authority requirements with particular attention to more than 20 plus high touch points. So that is the COVID-19 cleaning policy that National rental car has adopted and makes sure. So that's good to know that there's 20 or more high touch points that they make sure that they pay attention to, and it gets that stamp of approval. Now, one thing, because we are in a pandemic, the company is extending its existing no-fee cancellation policy to include customers with prepaid rentals that book directly through them. So prior to that, the fee would have been incurred. So just things like that. But make sure that you are on the lookout. okay, for certain other fees that might have shifted or changed. So if you previously booked, you may want to check that out. So National, highly, highly recommended. It's my go-to. Even though I've used other companies, I tend to really, really love National. So I highly recommend them. And get on the loyalty rewards program with them. It is absolutely going to be worth it. You're going to be getting upgrades as soon as you join. The second one that I'm going to recommend out of a slew of ones that I've gone through typing in and looking at rates and things like that is Enterprise. And Enterprise, kind of the sister company to National. No surprise that they are run extremely well. And again, a larger company, so their carports are going to probably be more prominent in most international airports or other local airports. So sometimes that makes it easier getting in and out. And also you have to think about what's in stock with those larger companies. When you start to go budget and you go to those smaller companies, you start to only get what's available, and sometimes that can be detrimental. Because if you're traveling with a family of 5 and you get, this sedan that, barely fits you, or it's typically meant for 4 people and you have an extra person crammed in there, it just doesn't work for you, but you have no choice because there's nothing else available. So also another thing to keep in mind, which is again why I like these companies. But Enterprise, and this is again according to businessinsider.com, according to the 2019 survey by trusted market research company JD Power, Enterprise scored highly for their website and app, so that was placing second and third, as well as placing second for overall customer satisfaction. So there you go. Customer satisfaction, another big thing. So that is gotta be, for me, when renting a car, quality of rate, quality, and customer satisfaction to me tend to be the 3 things that I absolutely must look at. And both National and Enterprise have great customer satisfaction and very good customer service. So I've always been impressed. I typically don't go through Enterprise unless I just find a deal. And trust me, guys, I am always looking out for a deal. Typically, their weekly rental, on average, when I was finding, is roughly about $450 to $470, taxes, including taxes and fees. So roughly in that range. So it's a little bit less than National. Again, so if you're looking for a little more lightening up on that wallet, this would be another. Or just an alternative good look. Again, I'm kind of a loyalty brand person, so when I go with someone that I really love, I tend to stay with them. But Enterprise is a good company, so I recommend them. And they have a COVID-19 cleaning policy as well. Their policy is very similar. So it's the washing, vacuuming, general wipe down, and sanitizing with disinfectant that meets health authority requirements. So it's their clean pledge. So all of that. Now it doesn't necessarily state that they go for the high touch places. You'd hope that they would, but they just make sure that it's washing, vacuuming, and general wipe down and sanitizing with a disinfectant. But again, when you start paying less for things, I don't think that should negate the customer service or the quality of the product. But again, you pay less, things tend to not be as detailed oriented. So another reason why sometimes I will go a little bit higher in my price range with things like that, because in this day and age, that's kind of an important thing, the sanitation of the vehicle, especially when you're using it after somebody else did, or even somebody from the company was in the car. So you want to make sure that it's clean. I would recommend doing a nice wipe down anyway, carry with some sanitation wipes. Make sure you keep a bottle of the hand sanitizer in the car, and then just wipe down any areas that you are personally going to be touching. That's just, for me, I'm not a germaphobe or anything, but that's something that I would do personally. Now, their cancellation policy, again, during this pandemic, the company is extending its existing no-fee cancellation policy to include customers with prepaid rentals booked directly through them. So that was booked directly through them. That's right. A few things to be aware about: that Enterprise's daily rate can be slightly higher than the average car rental rate. And I'm not comparing that specifically to national, but the average just across the board, they can be a little bit higher. That's part of the reason why if I wasn't going with national and I looked at Enterprise, I typically didn't go with them if I was looking to stray away from national, because I wanted a better deal and I was going to be traveling longer, or it was a shorter stay, because you have to think about the short-term length of rentals sometimes can cost you more than the long-term length of rentals. So typically they were a little bit higher. So, but the company has reduced additional charges, some additional charges, like drivers under the age of 25. Because typically, if you had a driver that was allowed to drive, or someone that was under the age of 25, like adding them on, it was typically a higher fee. Some of those charges have been reduced or changed. So again, it's good nowadays to be checking anyway. Things can change so rapidly. Okay. So Enterprise, another quality one. And one more that I'm going to go and recommend, and this is through a personal experience of mine, was Hertz. Hertz, I had a great experience with, and I happened to get the best deal with them at the time, which is why I rented with Hertz. It was when I was traveling to Napa. We flew into San Francisco. Again, I typically go with national, but we had planned this trip kind of last minute, and we came up and looking at rental cars, a few weeks before, and I think we just couldn't, everything was so expensive, and it's expensive in California anyway. And so we were looking, and all of a sudden we were looking between companies like Alamo, Avis, and Hertz. And so I strayed away from Enterprise and National because they were just too much that I wanted to spend for what we needed the car for. And we ended up going with Hertz, and we got a great deal, and they were fantastic. The customer service was brilliant. The only thing that, at least, and this might have just been a location thing, the only complaint I had was that they weren't very transparent with the additional fees when you were checking out and they were asking you if you wanted to get the refueling charge or pay so you didn't have to worry about refueling and things like that. Take your time with that. Don't let them rush you. I felt like I was rushed, and I handed my card to them, and, I was holding my card, and they just kind of took it and ran it and charged me, and I didn't really need that, and I wasn't quite sure what I was paying for at the time. So don't hand over that card right away. Ask questions. Don't let them rush you. I think that was just a location thing at the San Francisco Airport, International Airport. So I felt a little rushed with that, and I ended up paying for – it wasn't horrible, but I ended up paying for more gas than I needed, really. And for us, it would have been cheaper to refill the tank. But because we ended up had already paying that fee, we, I think, filled up – like a few extra bucks on our trip, and then once we took it back, we didn't have to worry about, we just went straight to the airport, didn't have to worry about stopping at a gas station. So it was convenient, but just make sure that you pay attention to those. That was my only gripe with that location specifically. I'm not saying that all Hertz are like that. But they are a top regarded company, and they are known for more of their long-term rentals. Okay, so they have that sense of you get a better deal when you get the car for a long-term rental versus those short terms. The company also has more than 1,600 locations at airports in the U.S. alone. That's a lot of airports. Or a lot of locations at least. So 1,600 gives you plenty of options. So if you're not even sure, because there are some cities you go to where certain companies you cannot rent from. I usually recommend if you're flying in, getting the rental car there. But I have found a lot more Hertz locations to where if you fly in, you can take a cheap Uber, which is not far from the airport, and get your rental car off site, and sometimes that can be more beneficial. So that was beneficial for another trip I took where we actually took a cheap Uber, got a rental car, and it ended up costing us less money not going through the airport. So that sometimes is a way to do that. But a typical 1 week rental with Hertz is around $650 to $690, somewhere in that range, and that is including taxes and fees. So you're thinking, well, that doesn't sound much different from National and Enterprise. Those tend to be more. Again, this is about a 1 week rental. Now, you can get it longer, and sometimes I tend to find a lot more deals with Hertz as far as the short-term last-minute rentals than I do with National Enterprise. Again, I'm more of the brand loyalty type of person, and I go with my loyalty members program, so that tends to help me out. But Hertz, I have found you can find better deals last minute than some of Enterprise and National. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, but those have been my experiences. They, too, again, have a COVID-19 cleaning policy, and the policy is that the company's new cleaning policy is, as, quote, a 15-point cleaning checklist, and all cars that have been sanitized are being marked with the Hertz Gold Standard Clean sticker, which will only be broken when the car's driver accesses the rental for the first time. That means that the driver's area is disinfected as a last step when the car is moved to its final location, which is really a great thing. You know, if you think about it, because what I was talking about earlier is having something to wipe everything down. Well, this makes sure that they have wiped everything down. Now, I'm one of those, I'm kind of a double, cautious person, so I still bring the hand sanitizer and the wipes and everything else. But it does feel a little bit better that they are giving that gold sticker where they know as soon as that sticker's on, it's like a seal that can't be broken until you get in it. That means that it was wiped and the last person to get out of it made sure it was clean, which is great. So there are 3 companies that I highly recommend if you're looking at renting a car or going on a road trip or flying somewhere and needing to get that car. There are others out there, some honorable mentions, Avis, Alamo, those are quality. You can find things. If you're going more for budget, I would look into those other directions. I'm not saying that you can't find budget friendly with these companies. The customer service and the quality you get and the rewards programs are definitely worth it, in my opinion. And when you're traveling, you want to feel just as safe as on the road as you do when you're flying. So after the break, we're going to be talking about recommended booking sites to find some of these rental cars and get that great deal when we come back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us. If you were just joining us, we were talking about recommended car rental companies that I would go with. And now I want to get into the online rental booking sites and some recommended sites. So there's so many to be looked at and there's so many to go through. I had to start with one, and I found this to be extremely helpful. Autorentals.com. Autorentals.com is an excellent place to start your search. it's basically, it'll help you find searches and pricing and things across the board through a variety of companies, so you can be sure that you're getting some of the best deals. And it's really, to be honest, it's kind of like the starter. If you don't really know where to go, you don't have a preferred company or brand like I do that you like to go through, this will go through so many companies. You'll get quotes and things from Enterprise, Hertz, Economy Bookings, Avis, Hotwire, Budget, Expedia, Dollar. I mean, it's got everything. It's a great place to start. You can find some comparable and affordable prices across the board through multiple companies. And I highly recommend it. It's kind of the starter site. It also searches not only through different car rental companies, but online travel agencies and other rental company homepages. So it's got all the booking sites and things that you're going to want to. So autorentals.com is my recommended site to start out if you're not really sure. I mean, I like to go to all of them anyway, but I'm one of those deep researchers. If I can, I will find and know exactly what I want. And that's why I've always gone with National. I'm just very familiar. I know what I'm looking for as soon as I go in. And I know what time I typically want to rent my car from, pickup times and things like that. So if you're one of those and you tend to get a car a lot when you travel and rent a car, you might already be well versed in this. But if you're thinking about maybe it's last minute, or you're thinking about wanting to switch companies that you usually rent cars with, or you're looking for more of a budget-friendly option and you want to find more searches without having to go to every single rental car site and compare them, you can start with autorentals.com. And again, you're going to find so much variety on there, and it's going to indicate which rental locations, if they're off-site, or if they're from the airport, if they're off the airport, or if they're at the airport. It depends which is more important to you. Like I talked about earlier in a segment, I found it cheaper for a location that we took a cheap Uber or a quick Uber over to the company and got our rental car that way and saved a bunch of money. Other times, convenience tends to be the easiest thing. You get off the plane, you've just been flying for how many hours, and all you want to do is get to your next destination. So the easiest thing is for you just to quickly get in that car and get to the hotel or start your drive wherever you have to be. So there's a lot of different pluses to autorentals.com that I find. I mean, it does cover most of the major cities worldwide, okay? And it links you to vendors, web pages, and booking sites, some companies that you may never have heard of, which could allow you to be a little bit more budget friendly. So that's definitely a plus with going through autorentals.com when you're searching. But you have to be aware that this can be one of the downsides to going through. Some of the, best deals that are reported are not actually the true price, because they don't include some of the taxes and fees. So you need to be careful when you find it on there and you say, oh, well, the best price is with them, because you could already be into the booking process when you're finding out that there are more fees, and it might have been just as much money to go with normally who you went with, or to get a nicer car with their company, So you just want to pay attention to those. And some are not fully, you can't cancel, they're not fully cancelable, or they're either non-refundable, or there's a fee for a cancellation fee. So those are some things that you need to be aware of that can be kind of a downside for going through autorentals.com. It's really just making sure you read the fine print. So just be aware that some of the best deals you see on there might not include some of the taxes and things like that. But it's a great way to start to get a feel for what's out there and what companies, and it'll take you to different sites. So I highly recommend them. That is one. There's a handful that I'm going to go through, but there are so many. So if you have one that you know and you love, awesome, and that's great. But don't be afraid to check these out. I'm sure you've heard of most of these, but again, I'm one of those, I like to be comfortable when I'm booking and sure. And I'm adventurous, but when I know something that works and where I can get good deals, I tend to gravitate to that. So the next one I'm going to go through is Priceline car rentals. Now, Priceline is a great company. They tend to have some of the lowest options, at least with U.S. cities. So if you're looking on the lower side and you want to find the cheapest or the most budget friendly, Priceline car rentals will definitely help you out a lot more there. And one of the biggest pros to Priceline is they tend to have more of the true low prices. And when I say the true low prices, that means what they list as typically includes taxes and fees and things like that, or you don't have very high taxes and fees, so the price is very close to exactly what you're seeing. So it's easy in that sense. It's also easy with Priceline because their site allows you to add hotels and airfare and things on top of your car, and you tend to be able to save a little bit more when you do those type of bundles. So bundling actually, no one likes to quote those commercials or anything, but bundling actually can save you money sometimes. I mean, it really can. It just depends what you need. Now, don't bundle for the sake of bundling. I will tell you that, because I've looked at doing that, and every time I almost get through the process, I sit there and go, you know what? It was so much cheaper to book our hotel separately and then the car rental. And I did. We bundled one time with Priceline on a short trip up to Dallas, and it did end up saving us money, the car and the hotel. And we actually ended up getting an upgrade in our hotel going through the bundle. So that was kind of neat. And so I really enjoyed that. But typically when I look at Priceline, I'm not going to bundle most of my trip. But again, it's great. It's great if you're looking for that weekend type of thing, or you need something, quick. They're going to have the lower options. So check those out. The next one, which is very similar to Priceline, which I know everyone's heard of, and it's, not to sound like a broken record, but Expedia. Expedia, it consistently offers or matches the lowest price, or close to it at least, more frequently than Priceline does. And that's a really big thing. Priceline does match a lot, but Expedia is one of those that is consistently making great. You're typically finding a great offer with Expedia, which is why I'd like them a little bit more than Priceline. But like I said, I've used both. I have used both. So if you haven't used either one of them, I don't think you can necessarily go wrong. But if you're having to flip a coin, I'm just going to save you that toss and say go with Expedia if you haven't used either one. You're not going to go wrong either way, but I'm just going to recommend that. And again, this goes back to what I was talking about with Priceline. Expedia offers great bundle options. In fact, the bundle options tend to be better with Expedia, I have found out. So I've done airfare. We went to Prague. My wife and I went to Prague. Actually, we were dating at the time. We ended up getting our flights and our hotel through Expedia. And we got a great deal. Now, the other thing about Expedia, and you have to realize with these bundles, especially when you're doing flights, it tends to be a lot of connections that you have to go through. Now, you can find those deals where you bundle and it's a direct flight, but it typically is not. It's going to, we flew from Houston to, I think it was Newark, and then to Frankfurt, and then to Prague. And then coming back, we flew back to Munich, then to Calgary, then to Houston. So it's like we had to jump around a lot. But we got a great deal on those prices. Now, we didn't use Expedia specifically for a car rental. They're one that I haven't bundled with a car, but I consistently see them matching prices all the time. I've looked, when I look at car rentals, I still look at Expedia. I just haven't gone through them yet. They're one that I would probably go with over Priceline. Priceline we were going with more for the hotel, and we just happened to bundle the rental car, and it worked out really well for us. But Expedia is one that I would recommend a little bit more. Their rates tend to be the same, as through rental companies and the whole system. So you're not going to find a lot of varying things. So if you go from Expedia and go into that same company's cost, you're going to find typically some of the same rates. Expedia may help you out a little bit. Again, depends what you're looking for and what kind of car you're renting, but definitely a pro that they are consistently matching lower prices. And so if there's a deal, even with that company that you didn't see and they see it, Expedia will match that. So it's great. So I highly recommend them. And again, like we said, we talked about the bundling. So if you already use the site for hotels and airfare, it's really easy to add the car on. So if you know or typically are spending money on Uber and Lyfts and things like that when you go and you booked your stuff through Expedia, consider adding the car on. It'll save you a lot more money. And when you go through a travel agent, they will tell you that they can probably save you more money doing that bundle than if you just did it separately. So Expedia, another good one that I'm sure you are aware of. The last one that I'm going to recommend, again, these are all kind of big sites that you have heard of, but maybe just don't think of all the time. There's so many now that we tend to forget. These are what I would consider some of the top ones. Hotwire would be the other one. Now there's, again, with booking sites, there's a whole lot more that I could go into, but again, these are just ones that I highly recommend or I know that are comfortable and safe to go through. Hotwire is another one. It again offers some of the lowest rates by way of opaque rates. And opaque means that you don't find out about the rental company until after you pay for the non-refundable price. So that can be looked at as a pro or a con depending, what your view is there. So just, again, it means that you don't find out about the rental company until after you pay a non-refundable price. So you could be getting a great deal, but going through, Avis or Alamo, and you were wanting to go through National, right? So you don't really know. Or it could be a company you've never even heard of, but it's the lowest price. So if you're kind of on that budget shopping or you want to make sure that you're not spending a lot of money on the rental, you just want it to get to and from, without breaking down, then Hotwire is a great one to go through. They, when you're kind of do that blind test, it's a gamble, but, it can be a rush too. I've done it with hotels where you find a great deal, and again, it's going to be at least, usually it's going to be at least a certain rating of rental that you're going to get or hotel that you're going to get up to a certain. So you could get let's say you're wanting like a 3-star rating, or let's say you're wanting a sedan, and it, could be a sedan all the way up to a sport car, but you don't know what you're going to get. So sometimes, what company and what car and what level, those can all be up for grabs and just kind of like a game of Russian roulette. Same thing with the hotels. When you're booking some of those hotels, and it has some of the same situations. You could be looking you could get as low as a 3-star. It will state that, but you could end up with a 5-star. So it just kind of depends. And a lot of this has to do with some of the companies trying to make sure that their inventory is being out and what they are using. So that could be a plus or a minus for you depending on your point of view. Hotwire's leadership in low rates is confirmed by auto rentals. So it shows up as one of the best buys on a regular basis. So that's why I put Hotwire on here. So especially if you're looking at a lower rate, you could go with Expedia, you could go with Priceline, but Hotwire would be the one that I would consider looking at a third if you're not really finding what you want. And you may want to go there first. But as I stated before, autorentals.com is a great place to start. So go to autorentals.com and you're going to be able to look through hundreds and hundreds of sites. It will compare lots of different companies and you will find more of what you're looking for. So there you go. Those are my recommendations there for car booking rental sites. So there's plenty more out there, but those are what I recommend. Stay with me because when we come back, I'm going to be talking about some great getaway trips for this upcoming Labor Day weekend.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. We were just discussing some great online booking sites for rental cars. And for sticking with us, as promised, I'm going to go through a couple of recommended trips for this upcoming Labor Day weekend. That's right. Labor Day, I know we're only in August or approaching August, but Labor Day is around the corner. And I know some of you, if you haven't already been thinking about getting away, you might be considering that. I know things are slightly different in 2020 with vacations, but if you want to make that road trip or get away with that family, I'm going to recommend a couple places, and these are a little bit spread out, some of them up north and some of them south. So I personally would go to any one of these places. So you should check them out. So here we go. So the first place that I'm going to talk about is in Wisconsin. That's right, Lake Geneva and Wisconsin. Okay, Lake Geneva. It's situated between Chicago and Milwaukee, and it's a great Labor Day getaway destination because it's filled with beaches and golf courses. You can do lots of horseback riding. There's plenty of trails to do that, and there's a lot of dramatic mansions and things along the lake that are really beautiful to check out. Some of these are $1 million mansions that you can go and look at right on the lake. So it's really neat. One thing that I found that was really interesting that is considered a must-do, that I would love this, is while you're there, they say it's an absolute must to join a U.S. mailboat tour and watch the mail jumpers deliver the mail. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, when I read or heard that, what is a mail jumper? It didn't make any sense to me. So I had to go and do a little digging, and I found out that you can get all kinds of boat tours around the lake, and some have meals and some are party boats, or you can rent a boat. But the U.S. mailboat tour that you get to watch the mail jumpers on it's a boat that they go along the lake and they pick up the mail or drop off mail throughout the lake. And you have these jumpers, in quotes that I say, that literally are like, get out and are hanging on the side of the boat, and the boat doesn't necessarily slow down and stop. It just keeps it's a slow pace, but you see them just leap right off onto a deck or a dock or something. They put the mail in the mailbox and then they jump back on the boat. Or you see them, get the mail from somebody that they're delivering. And it's really kind of a neat, like I watched a video and it looks really neat to witness that. And this was something that they used to just do, and it's been going on for so many years, and now it's just become a big tourist attraction. So if nothing else, get on one of those boats just to watch those mail jumpers, because, they're doing their job, but it's kind of like a show, and it's really neat to think about how things they used to do so many years ago that they're still doing now, and it just has the fun element to it. Plus, if it's a gorgeous day, who doesn't want to be on a boat just traveling around on the lake? So that's one thing that they say you got to do. But they also say you have to stop at, check out the carnival rides and, get the carnival foods and things like that, because they have a carnival called the Annual Walworth County Fair, and that runs August 29th through September 3rd. And then, of course, there's always fireworks that go on, and you can, a great place to stay is, if you're not really have a budget in mind, I would recommend is the Grand Geneva Resort and Spa. It's kind of an all-in-one there for you, so it's got the relaxation element as well as the grand element to it. That's been highly recommended. So Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, definitely one to check out this Labor Day. Another one, staying a little bit up north. And this one, when I found it, and it was recommended that I found the recommendation for it, I was a little taken back because I've never gone that far north in the United States before. And it's Bar Harbor, Maine. I've never been up to Maine. And I was, it's a coastal city, so I was like, well, that could be really great. And it just sounds relaxing. Bar Harbor, Maine. I mean, first of all, just saying Bar Harbor and being by a harbor, it sounds relaxing, especially at that time of year. It's not cold season. It's cooled off just a little bit, but typically up north in those northeastern states, around August, September, you're getting really gorgeous weather. Because I know that every time I go up to Chicago, my favorite time to visit is between the end of August and mid to late September. That's some of the best times to go, because August, it's still kind of hot and you get that. But when you get into September, you start getting that really gorgeous, I call it the cool summer weather. It's not quite fall, but it's not as hot as it used to, and you get the really gorgeous weather. But Bar Harbor, Maine is a great place to see the sunrise, and apparently if you want to see the first sunrise in the United States, this is where to do it. And you get to make a short drive from Bar Harbor to Cadillac Mountain, which is nearby Acadia National Park. So you go out, see the sunrise before anyone else in the United States. There you go. And you bring a blanket and hang out, amongst your significant other, family, or friends. And then there's a lot of scenic things to do once the sun is up. You can walk along the ocean path for, gorgeous views, or you can check out Thunder Hole and Otter Point, which are highly recommended places to check out along if you have that, if you travel to see the sunrise. But one thing that I found really, really exciting, and I'm a food guy too, so I love trying foods and local things and things like that. So after you see the sunrise, one recommendation was to go to Jordan's Restaurant. Now, Jordan's Restaurant is known for blueberries, basically using blueberries, and apparently wild blueberry pancakes. That's what they're known for. It was started in 1976 by the Payne family to fill a need there in Bar Harbor. And it's a home-style restaurant, and the idea was to feature wild Maine blueberry products. So if you don't like blueberries, then this might not be the place for you, but I love blueberries, and if you are a breakfast blueberry person, this, I heard, is just amazing, amazing, amazing. So you can go in. I hear it gets very packed, so you're going to want to make sure that you get there at a good time. But let's say you want to skip the breakfast and go right for the sweets, which sometimes is me as well. Well, then I'm going to recommend going to Ben and Bill's Chocolate Emporium. Now, this is homemade. It's a homemade creamery, and they make candy and sweets and ice cream. And anything homemade like that, and just a candy shop, walking in, you can just smell it, and it's just delicious. So this is apparently a staple. And one thing that is highly, highly recommended, and I'm on the fence about this one, is the lobster ice cream. That's right. I did say that, the lobster ice cream. I know some of you are thinking, that doesn't necessarily sound fantastic, but apparently it is. And the reviews they just rave about the lobster ice cream, and this is what you have to get when you go to Ben and Bill's Chocolate Emporium. It's a creamy blend of sweet vanilla with salty frozen chunks of lobster. It is apparently a must while you're there in Bar Harbor, And the line apparently goes around the corner for this during the summer months, or when it's open and it's nice, gorgeous weather up there. So there you go. There's some fantastic things to do. Gorgeous sunrise, nice relaxing time by the harbor, good food, great sweets. It's a good getaway for a Labor Day weekend. So you couldn't ask for much more. All right. Another one that I'm going to go into is one of my favorite places in Arizona, and it is Sedona. That's right. Red Rock country. I absolutely adore Sedona. It's beautiful. My favorite time of year personally is to go in October, November. I have family over there, so we would go and visit, and then we would drive up to Sedona because it's only 2 hours from Phoenix. So it's a very short drive. So if you actually happen to be in Phoenix, or you go into, Scottsdale or Tempe or any of those places that are very close, it's roughly, anywhere between a 2 to 3 hour drive. So it's not too bad. So you can actually make a day trip of it if you want, or you can make, a little, you can go for like an easy one night. You can go up there, stay one night, and then come back, or things like that, depending on what your travel plans are. But I recommend Sedona if you are an outdoor enthusiast, and it's worth going up there for more than one day. It absolutely is. I mean, it's red sandstones formations are stunning enough. And if that doesn't get you, I mean, there's so much to do up there. It's unreal. If you're an outdoor person, like I said, this is going to be a dream for you. I mean, there's hiking, biking, horseback riding. You can take RV trips. There's kayaking. There's so much to do. I mean, I dare you to find something that you cannot do in Sedona. It's very, very much an outdoor place that you're going to want to look at. But I am going to recommend one thing you should look into doing if you happen to go. And it's checking out Antelope Canyon. That's right. Check out Antelope Canyon. That there is a tour you can take. Now it's Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend tour from Sedona. Okay? So this is one of those just iconic pictures that you can't even really describe. I mean, it's basically those gorgeous canyons with nice smooth sand inside, the kind that you see on like the screensavers, right? With like the light coming down. And it is picturesque and absolutely stunning and worth it. Now, there is a catch to doing the Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend tour. The canyon lies on Navajo land, and so you can't do it without an authorized guide. So if you go through and you go through the Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend tour, they provide a guide who's a pro at getting the best photographs that you can possibly get. And the tour also includes a round-trip transportation from your hotel, from a Sedona hotel, lunch, a hike to Horseshoe Bend, and a stop at the Cameron Trading Post. So it's really worth it, in my opinion. Prices can kind of vary depending on it, but it depending on time, but it's roughly going to be about $235, something like that, or $240. And it's a day excursion. It's something that you can't get anywhere else. And like I said, it's not like you can just go and pack up. You have to have a guide. You have to get permission by having an authorized guide to take you. So it's not anywhere that you can just access freely. So I highly, highly recommend that one if you're going to be in Sedona. There's so many different hikes and trails to go to that don't require a guide. And if you're an outdoor person, really check it out. My brothers and I, we got some really gorgeous pictures and just had a great time going up through the Red Rocks and hanging out. It was amazing. It was great to be outside. Great to feel alive. Now, if you are not one of those that wants to go hiking up a mountain or getting on the back of a horse or something like that, don't worry. There's other activities you can do because there's plenty of shopping in the area. There's really great food and places and restaurants to eat. So don't worry. There's going to be plenty of that. But, it can be a more spiritual sense if you like because of that sense. There are yoga and wellness centers that you can look at to do more of the spiritual type of activities or more of a relaxing activity. But I would recommend going on a wine tour from Sedona. You can get a wine tour from Sedona to the Verde Valley Vineyards, and you can do it in whatever style you want. You can make it a little bit of a more of a luxurious travel, or, you can get a large group and go. I mean, this tour typically is about 5 or 6 hours, and it's going to take you to a couple different vineyards, at least 4 different vineyards. So you're going to get a really great taste of some of the wines in the region, which are phenomenal. And it's just a lot of fun, and it gives that more relaxing feel. So if you're interested in getting away a little bit, and go ahead and take that wine tour. You're not going to regret that. I don't think anyone's ever taken a wine tour and immediately regretted it at that point. And again, for those that if you just don't want to do anything and you want to relax, go and check out the Adobe Grand Villa Spa and get yourself a nice massage and then just enjoy the weather. It's nice and dry over there, so I recommend it as a Labor Day weekend getaway because you have a little bit of breeze and coolness, and even though it's still hot, that dry air just doesn't really make it feel like it's 130 out. You don't have that humidity. So there you go. Those are some recommendations for Labor Day getaways. So make sure that you check those out. Do a little bit of your own research if you want. But again, Lake Geneva in Wisconsin, Bar Harbor, Maine, and Sedona, Arizona are my recommendations. I hope you have been inspired to take a trip this year or looking to start planning one. It's never too late to start traveling. It can open our eyes to new experiences, even unlock things about ourselves that we never knew. I believe everyone should travel and explore more of what this world has to offer. It can give us an appreciation and love for so many things. So let's get traveling.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.